Right, that was a report of President Sisi's statements and speech before a huge number of Egyptian people, from political parties' leaders to, of course, the leaders of the security and armed forces. But, of course, that will be discussed in our second segment, extremism and new religious discourse. That will be in our next segment. But before we start with our discussion with the first segment, which is the African Union conclusion, let's first have a quick report on the African Summit. Highlights women empowerment, calls for 7,500 strong force to fight Boko Haram, the prosperity of the African continent, and more. I'll come back for discussion.
African leaders gathered for the two-day annual African Summit on Friday in Addis Ababa. The summit theme was Year of Women Empowerment and Development towards Africa's Agenda 2063, which will serve to highlight the crucial issues and improve women's economic, political and social participation across the continent, a core priority for the AU's 2063 development agenda. As the summit got underway, Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe was confirmed as the new AU Commission chairperson amid some controversial comments on general parity. Several highlights from the pre-meetings throughout the week included the formation of a 7,500-strong regional force to combat Boko Haram and the development of the African Union Foundation to help finance the AU's growing budget, and the announcement of a new launch date, May 2015, for the tripartite free trade agreement, which will unify and integrate 3 regional trading blocs in sub-Saharan Africa. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, was attending the summit, however, decided to cut short his visit to return to Cairo after explosions in Sinai on Thursday night. During his Ethiopian visit, al-Sisi met with several of the continent's presidents, including the Sudanese president, the Zambian president, the Rwandan president, and Zimbabwe's president.
Welcome back. Let me first welcome our distinguished guests here, Dr. Amani Asfour, Chairperson at the Economist Business Council and focal point of the Eco-Social Council, and of course on the board, a member of board of the African Union. We thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And before starting with any kind of discussion, this African Union edition was highlighting women empowerment, but it seems like a huge number of other issues erupted in this summit. Please tell us more.
Normally, each summit there is the main theme of the summit, and then there is other issues which is crucial to the continent. So every year there is a theme that the African leaders choose to be the main theme and to put the agenda for it. So this year was the Year of Women Empowerment towards Africa's 2063 development agenda, plus all the other issues which is the normal program of the heads of states. But the main debate is about women empowerment. So this year, actually, all the heads of states were prepared to say what are they doing in their countries, referring to women empowerment. As we have seen, for instance, Zambia, who was just recently elected this week, has put the first vice president for Zambia to be a woman. Malawi, who is just also came after President Joyce Banda, he said that women empowerment is at the top of the list of his priorities. And so forth, all the African leaders were saying that women empowerment is crucial for the development of the nations.
Definitely, women have always played a crucial role. If we may speak about many challenges that are facing really the African continent, and those were on the agenda, beside, of course, the women issue. If you spoke about terrorism and how terrorism is hindering the progress of any kind of development. And that was much tackled in this conference. Can you tell us further more about it?
Of course, terrorism was a hot topic agenda, especially after President Sini have just arrived for the African Union Summit and this terrorist act, which everybody condemned. All the heads of states has condemned these terrorist acts. And it showed that there should be a really coordinated efforts among all the African leaders to fight terrorism. Because it's well known that Boko Haram in Nigeria who abducted the girls from the schools, and the Shabab in Somalia, which is the same thing, and the extremists in Mali, and what's happening in Central Africa. There is a lot actually of terrorist acts that's happening in the continent, and this terrorist act came just in the middle of our African Union Summit, which made it very apparent for everybody in the summit that terrorism is a very big threat to all of us in Africa. And even they link it with what happened Mugabe, because he just became President Mugabe of Zimbabwe, is now the chairperson of the African Union. He linked it with what's happening with Daesh in Syria. Same thing was happening in Iraq. So it's really a global agenda, the terrorism.
It is indeed, but it's hitting hard Africa particularly. We're speaking here about what is going on in Egypt, what is going on in Libya, what is going on in Nigeria and many others. That is Somalia, for an instant. And
Somalia with the Shabab, and Libya, what's happening in the Boko Haram, the terrorists here in Egypt. So it's really a common agenda across all the...
And it is a common challenge for the African continent. Another important point was projects in Africa, poverty which is hitting hard the African continent and hence became a real demand for the African nations. How was this issue particularly addressed?
Well, actually, it was addressed under the Agenda 2063 Development Agenda, because I will say this summit is about women empowerment and Africa 2063 Development Agenda. We all know that the 50 years passed when we celebrated 2013, the 50 years of establishment of the Organization for African Unity, and now it's African Union, and how it was really tackling the political liberation of Africa. Now, Agenda 2063 is really tackling the vision for the 50 years coming, with a vision of a prosperous, peaceful, powerful, integrated, inclusive, intellectual Africa. How can we really have a prosperous Africa? How can not only, and one of my real issue is about, it's not only about freeing from poverty, but wealthy people. You know, because the whole issue is when we say, some of our African leaders say that we want Africa to be free from hunger, free from disease, free from poverty. And I always challenge them, I tell them, no, we want Africa to be well-nourished, to be well-educated, to be healthy, to be wealthy. This should be the quality of our Africa 2063 Development Agenda. So the whole issue, it was taken about how can we have prosperous Africa through the investment in the human resources of Africa, including women and youth. And this was the very big debate, because as the debate goes, it shows that the productivity of the African continent should really focus on investment in its human resources, which is over 1 billion. That's why women empowerment was crucial. Investment in the natural resources of Africa, which is using science and technology for this. And that's why agriculture and agribusiness, because 80% of the women are working in agriculture, how we build the capacity of the women to raise the role in the value chain and the private sector. So, and one of the also very important things is the project that the African Union is putting together is PIDA, which is a Program of Infrastructure Development of Africa, having a network of roads all over Africa, because one of the things that's hindering our economic integration is about the roads and network of roads. It's about AIDA, which is the Accelerated Industrialization Development in Africa. So, and the CADP, which is the Comprehensive Program for Agriculture in Africa. So it's really about getting all the projects of African Union to serve Agenda 2063 with a very big vision for Africa for economic liberation.
You have highlighted an important integral vision for Africa, but can you further illustrate on each point? I mean, here, if we spoke about a prosperous, and you spoke about education, if we spoke about prosperous and you spoke about healthy, if you spoke about prosperous, then we spoke about agriculture, women empowerment, youth, and all this needs funding. So how did you view this?
Referring to funding, there was also during this conference, the summit, the launch of the African Union Foundation, which is about alternative resources for the African Union and for the projects in Africa through domestic private sector of Africa. And this launch, it was launched on the first day of the summit. I was honored to be one of the speakers among the panel with His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, President of South Africa, and Prime Minister of Algeria. And we were talking at the African Union Foundation how can, as you mentioned, how can we really, the private sector of Africa empower their role to be an alternative resources for the African Union and to have the prosperity of African Union. My intervention was about economic empowerment of women, accelerating their role in the private sector, and it goes with the theme summit, which Agenda 2063. So it is about really how we have a triad of empowerment, which includes the three pillars. The first pillar is about personal empowerment programs, how we empower and build the capacity of our people, including women and youth. How can they be able to establish their companies, support their small and medium enterprises, deal with banks, have the capacity to be able to run their companies and to increase their role in the private sector and the value chain, because we will see that even at the level of we want to really leverage from micro to small and medium and be competitive with the big companies. The second